That's a big one. There we go. There's another one. Holy cow. Hey guys, welcome back to Your Lake Fort Guide. Got a Guides Network episode today. It's one that I've been looking forward to for a long time. We're going to talk about one of the best big fish techniques in the fall. We're going to talk about how to catch really big bass on really big spoons. You know, we're talking about the Big Flutter Spoon. Hey, this is where it started. This is where it was invented. Mr. Joe Spates, if you guys have watched the channel for a long time, may have seen him on here before. He's a very good friend of mine. Actually invented the Flutter Spoon, started the whole craze. And Kelly Jordan kind of blew it out of the water when he took it on TV one time, and now it's done across the country. But for a long time, it was solely something that was here and in just the hands of a few people. But now everybody knows about them, and they still work. That's how effective they are. So one thing I wanted to cover real quick, first off the top, if you're going to be fishing a flutter spoon, anytime I'm really going to designate, you know, a lot of my day to fishing spoons, I want to fish a jigging spoon as well right beside it. This is one of Joe Spates' spoons as well. This is a Joe Spates jigging spoon right there. That is, I just started fishing Joe's jigging spoons here the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they have been phenomenal. I've already torn the mylar off the hook there. Got a hook bent out, I got to fix that. But so obviously it's been catching some big fish as well. But there are a lot of days when the bass will bite this, and the other part about this, it helps me identify my bait source. Anytime I'm fishing a flutter spoon in the fall, I want to be around barfish, smaller sand bass, crappie, something like that, and that jigging spoon will catch all species and tell me exactly what those bass are keyed in on, and kind of help me select the size and color of my spoon. So it's a good tool, and you always need to have that tied on in the fall. As far as the gear on the jigging spoon there, that's my Limit 5 series. That's a 610 medium heavy rod. We've got 12-pound monofilament line. Wait, 12-pound line, 610 medium heavy Limit 5 series. That's your key to that setup. Now let's talk about what we came here for. The Big Flutter Spoons. And this is a big giant one, and this is a smaller version. This is actually the weedless one that me and Joe kind of worked together to come up with earlier in the summer. But using both of them on offshore structure right now, anytime that I have a lot of timber or anything that I'm worried about hanging this up on, I'm going to go to that smaller spoon right there with the single hook on it. With that single hook design and that smaller spoon, you know, we built this to rip through grass, and it's weedless enough it'll come through grass. But what we also found is it's very snag free on timber and brush and docks and all that kind of stuff as well. It will still hang up some, but not nearly as bad as the ones with treble hooks. So that's kind of when I go to that smaller spoon, is when I'm in heavier cover, or sometimes just when it's a tough day and I can't get the bite on the big spoon, I'll throw this one, and every once in a while it'll get bit. For the smaller spoon, my setup that I'm throwing it on is a 7-foot medium. This is the Elite Series limit rod, but the 5 series would work as well. But a 7-foot medium action rod is what I'm throwing that smaller spoon on. It's 7-foot medium, the other one's 610 medium heavy on the jigging spoon, but in all honesty, those two rods are very similar in power. All right, so the big spoon for my set, this is my favorite color right here. It has, you know, kind of a gold and silver sparkle. We don't have much light left, so it may not be showing up real good, but there's a little bit of a gold finish to it, you know, that type of a color, a golden brownish color, but it has the silver sparkle as well. And then of course the dark line across the top that's hand painted on there, hand drawn on there, I should say. And then a chartreuse mylar dressing on the trailer hook. So the deal with that is these bass primarily key in on these barfish, yellow bass, and they're a silverish yellowish tint, golden kind of a color mix like that, and then they have black stripes on them, so we got a stripe there. So And then they have that little bit of chartreuse on, like right where it fades from the silver to before they get to the white on their belly. There's a really bright yellow chartreuse area on some of them. So that spoon right there matches the barfish better than any other one that I've found. That's why I like that color. Now that color's hard to get. You'll have to beg Joe every once in a while. He has a few that are made up like this. So if you happen to be in the shop over there, the Weedless Lures Tackle Shop, he might sell you one. But you can't always get this color. I had to beg for a lot of years to get a handful of them. So, but this shad color right here is good. This same chrome with a blue highlight in the middle is good. I really like the one that is silver with the chartreuse in the middle. That one's really good. And then gold this time of year, the gold spoon with the chartreuse in the middle, very good as well. That one comes with a chartreuse dressing on the hook for that one. So there's the gear. You know, that's kind of the setups that I'm using. Oh, I need to tell you about, almost forgot. On the big spoon, my setup, and this is strictly for casting purposes because this thing weighs a lot. I use a 7.2 medium heavy, and I use heavier line. I like to use 17-pound fluorocarbon and the 7.2 medium heavy Limit 5 series rod on the big spoon. And it's not for working the bait. And honestly, I'd rather have a lighter action rod to set the hook and work the fish with, because as you'll see later, I'll talk about, you don't really want to rip the hook set. You don't really want to overdo it on the hook set on these. But this thing's that heavy, so I want a tougher line, a stronger line to be more durable as far as casting it time and time again, reeling in big fish, the stress that puts on the line. So I need to have a bigger line for that reason alone, not anything to do with the action of the bait. And then the bigger rod, honestly, it just makes it easier to deal with and cast it. That's a big old funky thing, kind of awkward, hard to cast. So having a little bit heavier rod helps me do that more efficiently. All right, so there's your gear. That's my setups. That's the spoons I'm using. Areas, let's go over areas. So you may have seen an offshore structure video I did a couple weeks ago. Long flat ridges, road beds would be a perfect example. Just a long, super long, peaks out at the top, flat spot on top, but long and narrow. That seems to be what these fish key on in the fall on this lake, and really all the lakes in this area in East Texas. That seems to be the kind of structure they want this time of year, as far as the offshore structure driven fish. You know, pond dams are another perfect example of that. A pond dam is very similar. You'll have a long flat piece with a very narrow peak at the top. Those kind of areas are exactly what we're looking for. And some of the main lake points as well will have a narrow peak to them and will run way out into the lake. Those can be good as well. Those are really the three areas I focus on: main lake points with the narrow ridges, pond dams, and road beds. That's really what I fish the most of in the fall. Unfortunately for me on Lake Fork, we've got no shortage of pond dams and no shortage of road beds all around here. It also helps to fish those road beds because honestly, you don't really want a lot of timber if you're trying to fish a big spoon, and road beds never have any timber on them. So it's got that going for it as well. All right, now let me show you guys a little bit about how I'm working these baits, how I'm retrieving them, and how I'm setting the hook and dealing with these fish to boat these big old bags. I'm gonna retrieve on the big flutter spoon, or the smaller flutter spoon as well. I'm not really gonna try and overcast it because these things can get a little funky in the wind, so just a nice smooth medium distance cast. Give that thing time to get all the way to the bottom. It's very important to watch your slack. Watch that line fall. As that thing's falling and fluttering like it does, sometimes before it gets to the bottom, one will tag it. They'll hit it before it ever even hits the bottom. So it's really important to watch. If they do, you gotta, engage your reel, burn it up, and catch up to them and set the hook. That can be kind of a tough one to make sure you get the hook in. Sometimes you miss those fish. But once it's all the way on the bottom, my main standard retrieve that I'm gonna do is gonna be just a pull. Just a nice pull, and I'm gonna watch my slack. I'm gonna just do a little pull and then watch my slack. Making sure all the time that you're watching your line for those jumps. A lot of times you won't even see them hit it. Sometimes you won't even see the line jump. You'll just go to pull and it'll feel like you're on the bottom. Hey, when it feels like that, man, pull harder and reel harder. Sometimes when the fish are really suspended way up off the bottom, a good way to go about it too, if they're 3, 4, 5 feet up off the bottom, way away from it, when that spoon gets down there, what you can do is, if you'll make a big pull and burn your reel and then point back at it, follow that slack back down, make sure that spoon is always following a slack line. Now that right there, I probably just jumped that spoon up 8-9 feet off the bottom. So that's going to be ripping it in front of their face and fluttering back down. When they're suspended off the bottom, that's how I like to do it. So a hard pull, a few cranks of the reel handle, and watch my slack. Always falling on slack and falling it back down, watching that slack line, watching for that jump. Then another way, in a way that I should probably do more often, because old Joe Spates himself, the guy who invented this spoon, told me this is how to retrieve it. And I've caught, you know, for as little as I've done it, I've caught quite a few fish on it. You guys will actually see me, you know, caught some fish today on this retrieve. I know one of them for sure was on this retrieve. When that spoon's all the way to the bottom, just little hops, little subtle hops. Not even really loading the rod up, just enough to make that thing kick up and flutter down, kick up and flutter down, just a little bit at a time. Almost like a Texas rig, like if you were just hopping along an old worm on the bottom. Kind of a similar deal. Now on this one, you will almost always feel the bite. They will hit it and run with it. Usually is the case of from my experience, what I've seen. They just load up on it. One thing about a flutter spoon, though, guys, you don't want to just overly set the hook. It's just kind of a lean and really burn that reel handle in to dig that hook in. And then once you got him, you know, most of the time we fish these flutter spoons, like right here, we're on a big roadbed. There's not a tree anywhere near us. There's nothing for that fish to get into. So I'm going to kind of take my time getting him to the boat, honestly. I want to make sure that I'm keeping the rod loaded up real good, but I don't want to horse him. And if that fish tries to jump, you do everything in your power. Stick that rod as far in the water as you can. Keep that fish down. That flutter spoon, that's a lot of metal. It weighs a bunch. And it's got one treble hook on it. And when they go to jumping, that's a lot of leverage for them to throw with all this weight up here. So really try to keep them under the water. Kind of a reel set on the hook set. Vary your retrieves like we talked about. And catch some big old giant bass on a big flutter spoon. Guys, that right there is bass that are set up just absolutely perfect for a flutter spoon bite. So we can talk about flutter spoon today. These are what you want to look for. Those greens in the arches, suspended off the bottom a little bit. Those are flutter spoon bass if I've ever seen flutter spoon bass right there. What I like to do, as you guys can see, we found a big school of fish right here. Starts right there, you start seeing a few barfish, and then there's some bass mixed in with them. There's a big old bass right there. That's a giant, son. I mean a big one. So off the side of this ridge here, we're fishing those long ridges. And what I like to do, so as we look on the map, we're fishing a big long ridge. And what I like to do is work my way across these ridges. And you'll see here in a second. So this ridge runs way out here, from here to here. That ridge goes, and I marked all these fish right here. I marked some fish out here, and even marked some way out here. But it looks like we have two separate schools set up on this ridge. One right in this area, and then one right here where you can really see them grouped together, where I was marking all the little pods of fish with my waypoints there. And that's how I like to do it. I like to wander up and down. You can see my squiggly lines all over this ridge. I covered the whole thing. And I want to make sure that I don't miss any fish. I know exactly how big the school is and where they're set up. Once I've got all that, I know right here in this big circle is where I need to keep my boat. And I can't make a bad cast from that point. So maybe we can get us a couple big ones out here. There's a lot of fish in there, a couple good ones, so we'll see what happens. Got a little bait fish of some kind on. Barfish. So threw me a jigging spoon out there just to verify what was down there. And that's a little yellow bass right there that we just caught on the very first cast. So we know that those bait fish that we were marking, we know a lot of those fish that we're marking down there are going to be these right here, these big, big fat bar fish that those big bass are wanting to eat. So now that I've verified what this is, we'll get this one turned loose, and we'll get that big flutter spoon and go to work. Oh, that's a big one. Big flutter spoon bass right here. Come here, baby. You want to keep them down. You got to keep them down on a flutter spoon. Got to keep them down. Stay down, stay down, stay down. Oh. There we are, right there. Look at that. Bam. That's the kind we come to Lake Ford to catch right there. That is a beautiful, big old pot-bellied fat thing right there. You know, that's not no humongous giant, but that's probably a 6-pounder or so. Man, it's just one that you can catch a bunch of these fish on a bunch of days. So let's get her back in the water and let her have another day. Oh, I got her by the tail. I got her. She trying to go. Look at her. There she goes. I'll tell you guys what, moments like that, I get to see so many of them, and it just, It's unbelievable to me. It's kind of hard for me to imagine that I'm actually doing this every day for a living like I do. And I want to thank you, every one of you guys at Books Trips, you guys that are following along on the channel. I appreciate every one of y'all. Thank the good Lord and my family that supported me and helped me chase these dreams, and all my friends and everything else, man. I'm a happy man these days, boys. I tell you what, I'm an example that dreams come true, because I'm living mine right now, and you're getting to follow along and witness it. It's incredible. I'm excited, but I'm like, it's kind of weird. I'm having a weird moment right now, and you guys are getting to share in it with me. So the thing about this big spoon is it just, man, the smallest fish you catch is always a good one. Like every once in a while you pop a little one, but most of the time, the big spoon is always a good catch. There we go. There's another one right there. That's another good one. Where you at, baby? Stay down now. Stay down, big girl. Oh, a little wiggle. There we go. Hey, that's two right there, back to back. Here we go. Got a good little spoon bite going. That's a, well, it's not as big. See, that's what I was just telling y'all. It's funny, it's just telling y'all. It's kind of the smaller end of the spectrum of what you catch right there. Solid 4.5 or so, something like that. Maybe 4 3/4, probably about 4.5 though. But a good solid Lake Fork bass. Love it, man. Never gets old, boys. It never gets old. There you go, guys. There's a couple fish catches. There's all the details on how we go about flutter spooning on Lake Fork, Texas. What a wonderful place. I said it when I was catching that fish, and I mean it. Thank you guys so much for participating in this community that we're trying to build, where we really are about helping each other catch more fish and loving on our fellow man. That's what means the most to me, is building a community of brotherhood, and I appreciate each and every one of you for following along and getting involved in that the way that y'all do. So that's going to be it for today, man. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I think it was a pretty good video. I had a great time shooting it today. I was a little short on my hours. I didn't get much time to do it today, right here the last couple hours of daylight, but it worked out. We got a couple big fish on camera, and I think if you guys will use that information, I was able to help you guys hopefully catch a few more big bass, because that is a technique that will absolutely catch you a monster at times. All right, well, hey guys, thanks for watching. As always, we appreciate it. Go ahead and like this video. Whoa, yes, you must like this video. No, if you did like this video, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up for me. Hey, if you want to see more, be sure and subscribe. Or if you're watching on Facebook, what you want to do is like the Your Lake Fork Guide Facebook page. That way it notifies you every time we do a new video. Also, if you could, be sure to leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you'd like to see. We'll do our very best to get to it as soon as possible. Thanks again, and we will see you guys next time right here. Your Lake Fork Guide.